Okay, guys, we have 8:04 turning 8:05 on my screen here, so we will get started. Thank you all for being here. We will have a Q&A in the middle, just about 75% of the way through the webinar. So if you've got any questions or if there's something on your mind that you brought into the meeting, please bring it into Q&A, and you can certainly put it into the chat room also. My name is Colm Egan. I'm the Games Development Officer for Gaelic Games in Chicago, but nationally, I'm the Hurling Workgroup Chair, and I have been for, well, actually 10 plus years now. So I suppose this webinar came from the Hurling Workgroup launch, which was back in early March. A lot of you guys filled a questionnaire that we had, or a registration that we had, and many questions came about youth hurling programs. So that leads us to a full webinar tonight on youth hurling programs and some of the resources and some of the guidelines, I suppose, that we would maybe help or direct to. So that's where we are tonight. We're going to do a youth hurling webinar, certainly have hopefully a healthy Q&A. Tonight, I have asked some of my colleagues. We've got the Philadelphia Games Development and Western or San Francisco Games Development on. Alicia and Billy, they'll introduce themselves. They have little portions also. For my part, I'm going to direct you towards some resources that you can use for hurling games development in your youth clubs, and with us particularly with a youth direction. And then I suppose we'll really go to a Q&A, which will lead the rest of it. So thank you for being here. My first piece, we're going to turn it over to Alicia, and we're going to talk about equipment for youth hurling. So Alicia, while I'm gathering your info, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Colin. So my name is Alicia Wilkinson. I am the GDA for the Western Division, which is mainly based in San Francisco. And Colin just asked me if I could put together some information on equipment that's needed for hurling, specifically youth hurling as well, and for anybody that's new to hurling or not sure about what kind of equipment changes there are for youth players.
Just before you start, I'm hoping you guys are seeing my screen, other equipment and gear.
Yeah. So if you want to go on ahead up to the first slide
Gotcha.
for that, that's number 4, Colin. Thank you. Are you able to go in larger screen for that?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just need to go up one more slide.
Oh, sorry. The very start of it?
Yeah, just the start of it. There we go.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the first thing I'll just talk about is choosing the correct hurley size. So it's really important, especially at the youth age, that players have the correct hurley size. Obviously, by the time you're an adult, you're not really growing as much, so you generally have the same size of a hurl for most of your adult playing time. But with the kids and the youth players, they're going to be growing over the years, and they need to change the size of their hurl and make sure that it's correct for them. It says here a shorter and a lighter hurley is especially recommended for children and for those that are new to the game. The main reasons are a little bit obvious for that. If it's too heavy for them, they're not going to be able to move it efficiently. So they're not going to be able to hold it properly if they're trying to pick up the ball or solo. And then it's going to be even harder for them whenever they're trying to pull on it. It's just going to be a big, large piece of wood that they're trying to move around. So we want to make sure it's as light as possible for them so that they're able to get all of those movements needed as easy as possible. And then for the size of it, that will really depend on the height of the child. So for the next slide, we're going to give some tips on figuring out the correct height and size of the hurley. So if you can see the little picture there where it says top tip with a circle, it's showing the hurley there, and where that it says place your finger horizontally just underneath the grip as shown, and you want to measure to the child's wrist there. So you want them to stand with their arms loosely by their side, and then where the child's wrist measures up with that point just underneath the top of the grip there as shown in that picture. So ideally, the child should be able to hold a proper grip towards there on the grip, and then hold the hurley down by their side, and the hurley should just touch the ground. So it shouldn't be too long that the hurley's kind of angled. It should be completely straight along their leg and up towards their side, and they should be able to hold it comfortably. Now, the top of the hurley should not be extending past the wrist all the way up the arm. That means then that it's too long. So what we're sort of gauging for the best way to figure out the size for the kids is just have them stand relaxed with their arms by their side and measure at their wrist, whenever their wrists stand by their side. So that's sort of the easiest way, the best way to sort of gauge it from there. Next one. So if you can see from the pictures here, I know that it kind of didn't make sense for the child to be wearing white shorts because you can't really see the hurl that much with it, but it's showing how it can be too long. So if you can see where the red arrow is, it's showing how the hurl extends behind, past the wrist and behind the hand there. And then for the one in the middle where it's too short, you can see where the arrows are showing that the hurley is hovering above the ground quite significantly. So it does need to be just resting on the ground. And then the last one where it says that it's just right, you can see that the child's just got their arms relaxed down by their side, holding their hurley naturally at the top there, and the hurl just rests perfectly on the ground. So that's kind of a guideline for figuring out what size of a hurley that the kids need. Again, as we say, try to go for lighter ones if possible, especially for the smaller kids. So other equipment and gear that's needed, so they need more than just the hurley. They definitely need a helmet for health and safety. They shouldn't be on the field at all without a helmet. And that's even just as they're just sort of getting ready to warm up and start practice. They should definitely always have their helmet on, because in those moments, it's whenever they're not paying attention as well that something may happen. A spare ball might go flying past and hit someone. So make sure that they've got a helmet that fits. It needs to be tight to the chin, and the clasps at the back need to make sure that the helmet is secure, that it's not going to rattle around if they're moving their head. Sometimes you'll find with the kids having really, really small heads is that the chin guard might go under the chin and into their throat. And they may not be aware that that's not right. So you want to make sure that you check and make sure the chin guard is pressed right up against their chin, and that's in a safe position. They need to have their football boots or cleats. I'm assuming most clubs will be taking their youth on either grass fields or turf fields. If it's turf, they could maybe get away with their if they've only got runners. But for the most part, they should definitely try and have some football boots or cleats to be playing in. And then shin guards are optional, but again, with the young ones, you might want to ease them in with shin guards, and then as they get a little bit older and a little bit more comfortable, they can make that decision on their own. So we can definitely include shin guards from an early age, like U6s and U8s, and then, as I said, the child will get a bit more comfortable and feel more secure in not wearing shin guards. And then the next one, Colin. Thank you. So for underage, there's different types of slitters. These have been developed for the Go Games format to try and make things a lot easier for the progression of the kids. Back whenever I started playing camogie, everybody used the same hard size 4 ball. So, you know, it was kind of, as a young kid who was much smaller, it was definitely a harder ball to get used to in the beginning. So the GAA have introduced different types of balls for Go Games. So for U6s, you want to make sure that you have the first touch balls. These are the much larger ones. If you have seen any of them, they're definitely a lot bigger than a normal size slitter, and very soft. So if any of them get hit in the shins with it or anywhere else, it's not really going to hurt them that much, especially for such a small age group, the U6s. Because of the size of it, it increases their success rate in making contact with the ball. So it kind of, you know, makes the progression on the skills a lot quicker because of the size of that slitter. And then for U8s and U10s, then they go on to the quick touch ball. So it's a normal regular size, it's smaller, but it's still soft. It's not going to hurt them if they get hit by it. because as I've known in the past, especially using the proper slitter, with it being hard, if a kid gets hit with it, it definitely can hurt them, and it maybe puts them off a little bit, and they get a bit more scared of the ball. So having the right equipment that doesn't scare them definitely makes a difference. And then for the U12s, they'll move on to the Smart Touch, which is just a little bit harder than the Quick Touch. It's not as hard as a proper slitter, but it's pretty close. But the other thing with these balls means that the ball moves a lot quicker, and if they're striking in the air, it'll go a little bit further as well. It'll be softer for them to catch. So it just is more kid friendly for them before they start using the harder and quicker ball when they get into U14s. And then just on the note for equipment, so the same as the coaches, if you're going to be going out to the fields for youth practice, we want to make sure that our coaches look like coaches. So the coach should be noticeable for players and parents. So if parents come to the field and they want to drop their kids off at whatever age group it is, they'd like to be able to see, you know, offhand, oh, there's the coach over there. We'll send the kid over to that group. So having appropriate clothing and footwear is essential, depending on the surface that you're on as well. You can have your cleats and boots if you're on turf, you know, you can have runners, but you kind of want to look the part and look like you're a serious coach to give the best impression for the parents. Have a whistle if needed. I know not all coaches do use whistles, but you know, it's entirely up to you. If it is something that you like to use, obviously the kids will start to learn to listen for the whistle whenever they're playing games, that they have to listen for stoppages in play and instructions from referees. So it's not a bad idea to have a whistle, but you know, as I said, not all coaches use them. And then just on note, based on our picture on the bottom right, jeans and runners are not ideal for coaching, just as a heads up. So that's an overview, I guess, of equipment, especially tailored to youth hurling, and then also just a little note on what our coaches should be equipped with as well.
Very good, Alicia. We have 14 on, so we won't probably be clogging up the chats here. So does anybody have a question on Alicia's portion there? For sure, I would re-emphasize good size on your hurleys. Don't handcuff our players with long hurleys, guys. And another thing I suppose that I should have mentioned maybe at the top is when we talk about hurling here, we are talking about camogie also. Typically, I know in Chicago we run our programs co-ed for 6s and 8s and 10s usually for sure, but anytime we are talking about hurling, we're talking about camogie also. If I'll give you a second to formulate a question if you wish. Anybody have and if you are asking a question, just say your name and your club, guys, if you could, or your city. All right. Don't see anybody unmuting, so.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and unmute. Sorry there, Colin.
Okay, who's that?
This is Brian McGlynn from Little Rock.
Perfect.
So I caught on to the discussion of the slitters. So the difference between the quick slitter and the smart slitter is just a difference of the amount of foam that's there as far as the amount of firmness. Is that their size are going to be equivalent to a size 4 slitter?
Very little in it. They're definitely a couple of grams smaller than a size 4, but even in the hardness, there's very little in the quick and the smart in hardness. But they are a really good ball. Another thing that the youth slitters does is it helps the child succeed a bit. These balls will fly a bit better. The larger first touch ball will be able to be hit a bit better because it's a bigger ball. And you know, the first touch and the smart touch will get distance because they're not a fully size 4 or size 5.
Thanks, Colin.
One person asked about mouth guards for hurling. Mouth guards are not required for hurling, but every helmet must have a cage and must be kind of properly sized. And I will follow or back up Alicia there on the sizing of the helmets. But another thing on the helmets, and this is one big thing in hurling, and especially in youth hurling, it's the biggest time suck that you'll have in your hurling practice is putting on your helmets. It's definitely the time that you need help from parents and other coaches is putting on the helmet in the first place. So I would encourage you guys to get into just get into the habit of having parents help put the helmets on, and it's at the start, because it is a massive time suck if it's only one coach putting on the helmets. But measure up your straps, tie your straps, make sure your chin guard or your chin foam is on your chin, and usually then the helmet will be good. Any other questions on equipment before we move on to resources or other resources? Perfect. All right, thank you, Alicia. I am going to show you some resources. So what do I mean by resources? I mean, how do you plan sessions for youth hurling, and where do we get the materials? And I will distribute the materials after this. I've just put a few materials in a folder here for youth hurling specific. One thing I would say to you, a couple of things I'll say to you. Don't get overwhelmed. If you see 5 or 6 PDFs in the resources I'm going to show you, don't feel that you have to learn every page of every book that you're going to see in the resources. That's completely the wrong thing you could do, because you will overwhelm yourself. But do go through them and find items that you like, and don't forget that you need to just identify the skills of hurling. So we've quite a few skills in hurling, but you don't want to neglect one skill over the other. If striking on the ground is a lot easier than the hook or the block, we can't ignore the hook or the block, because that is a thing that the child absolutely needs to, all our children need to learn. So what I would suggest is identify the skills of the game, and then plan out how you teach them. So where do we find planning stuff? So let's see here. I'm going to go to my some of my PDFs, and hopefully I get to share them correctly. Hopefully they come up in my windows here. These are always a nightmare for me. So I am hoping that you are seeing a hurling resource menu. Is that correct? No, not yet. Okay, let me find that. Okay, now you should be seeing a hurling resource menu. So what is this? This is a one-pager, actually. This is one page from Martin Fogarty, who is the National Hurling Development in Ireland. And the reason I do this one first is it actually incorporates a lot of the ones I may show you later. But this one-page PDF has all of these different categories, like nursery, child, and then into youth and adult, teenagers and adults. But these are links. If you click on any of these, it will take you to a link, and it'll get you where you should be going with relation to what Martin is showing you there. So let's just take the very top one that he's showing us here. I'm gonna jump to the GAA learning site. It's now been rebranded as Tubber, which means the well, but it is definitely a well of knowledge. So we should be seeing now GAA learning, and this is the planning section. So why I bring this to your attention? You can click on hurling here, for instance. Now, if you're a football coach, you absolutely can do your football and your handball, and you can do all the different ages. If you see here, you've got 4 to 6, you've got 7 to 9, you've got 10 to 11, and so on. So you have a lot of activities here. Let's just pick one, say the strike from the ground. And you should be now seeing a new screen where it says strike from the ground, and it gives you a little detail of what we're talking about. This has a coaching page that shows you the game that you're going to play for strike from the ground and what you need to do so. But more importantly, and this is a big one here now, people often don't see that this has also got video. So what it's laid out in the previous coaching page, it'll also take you to the video of that. And you have a 48-second video here. So that youngster was able to get a good strike in there, but I think this is fantastic. The video really helps me. So no matter what they tell you here in the diagrams or even in the explanation of what they're trying to have you do, I think the video does it all. I will also show you the little planner here. There's a planning section where you can save that. You can save that particular activity to a planner, and you can build your own plans. So now, any quick questions on that just before I go to the next resource? Any questions on the activity planner from the GAA side? Not too bad. Okay, so that, but to go back to the whole Martin Fogarty piece, that is just one section of the whole thing. There's links there everywhere. I particularly find the Leinster one pretty good. There's a Leinster hurling resource here in the middle, and that's also in PDF format that I can send you. There's some good reminders down here on the second page of the Magnificent Seven, as he calls them, the skills that you should be learning or teaching your kids. These are the essentials, and I do agree with Martin Fogarty. These are the essentials, and we should remind ourselves. And then he gives you a little bit of advice in your sessions here. Play games in every session, include striking and catching in every session. So he as a Kilkenny hurling coach is telling you that that's vital, striking and catching in your sessions, and I'd agree with him for sure. And then even on this, even on the downloads link, that where it says downloads there, it will take you to another GAA page of exclusively hurling materials from Martin Fogarty. So this one is a catch-all. This one is a really important one, and I would say to you that if you only looked at one page after this webinar, when you get the information, this is a good one to go to. All right, going to show you just another one or two ones that I like. Actually, do you know something, Billy? Maybe we'll tee you up there so I can line up some of my other resources. Billy Hegarty is Games Development in Philadelphia. He'll introduce himself. Just before we go to Billy, any questions, guys, from the audience before I start teeing up some other resources? All right, this is easy peasy. Billy, you're on deck there.
Yep.
Okay, let me get your resources up. So now we should be seeing a PowerPoint on the hands. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So just to follow up what Colm said, I'm Billy Haggerty. I'm the GDA in Philadelphia. Just some fundamental things about coaching and the ability to coach, even if you didn't play growing up. I wouldn't have played much hurling now growing up at all. It would have been more football. But we've done a lot in the last couple of years with USGAA to kind of make sure hurling development is getting a lot better, especially youth development. So some of the key things I think for coaches is making sure that we're teaching the fundamentals and that we're 100% sure of ourselves on the fundamentals, and we're able to portray that onto the players. So the first thing is how they hold the hurley. So this is a big thing in America is they hold it like a baseball bat or like you're golfing. And we need to get that out of them at a young age, because the dominant hand has to be on the top of the hurley in order to control it. So that's something that you're going to run into. I'm sure if you've coached at all, it's something you have run into already. But breaking that habit at a young age is important, because in order to kind of progress with all these skills that Colm's talking about, we need the fundamentals to be correct. There's a couple different ways I've seen people do it. Some people use little bands or hair ties or things like that, just to connect that dominant hand to the top of the hurl, so it doesn't really move until they get comfortable with the way that they're going to twist their wrist to pull on it and to swing the hurl. So making sure that fundamental key is done right, and we don't let them say, oh, well, this is the way I hold it in baseball, or this is the way I feel comfortable, things like that. I think it's very important to break that habit early, so they're able to continue their development as they get old. You can go on to the next slide there. Yeah. So different ways we can get this done at a young age. Have them dribble through cones just with their dominant hand, so they can start to control the hurley. And they can feel comfortable just using it, and that non-dominant hand then can just come on next to it and start to guide the hurl. Even if they're shortening the grip of the hurl, if it's just playing a shorter pass or whatever, the hand should still look exactly the same. So the dominant should always be closer to the end and to the grip of the hurl. You can have them carrying around the ball in the non-dominant hand. It's probably the hand that they're going to be catching in as well. So get them used to holding the ball in that hand and catching in that hand. And that gets them more comfortable holding the hurl with their dominant hand. Again, you can use bands, hair ties, things like that to just get them comfortable, especially if we're using those lighter hurls and things like that. They can really start and start to swing it properly. So it's important to break that down. And then lastly, there is just being able to coach without playing hurling. So especially in Philadelphia anyway, we have a lot of coaches that may be parents or people that didn't play hurling or camogie growing up. And it's something that you absolutely can do, and you can absolutely be a good coach without playing hurling or camogie growing up. But what you need to do is you need to be comfortable with the fundamentals. If you can't do the skills or know how to correct the skills or what you want the players to look like when they're playing, it's going to be difficult for you. So make sure you're comfortable with the fundamentals, and even you pick up a hurl and maybe practice when you're not at training or something like that to get used to it. And then you'll know what you're looking for, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable in front of those kids. Understand the game. Some coaches may have played hurling or camogie growing up, but they might not have played it for the last 30 years, So making sure if you're getting back into coaching that you understand how the game has changed, that you kind of keep up with it, The style of the game has changed over the number of years. So making sure we're just staying current and up to date with all these resources and coaching modules we have and everything like that. So we're able to give the kids the best resource we can so they can develop the best. And then last but not least, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're all going to make mistakes. I'm going to make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes coaching. But it's just like playing. You can't be afraid to make a mistake in a session or something like that. Because otherwise, if you're not making a mistake, you're probably not putting yourself out there enough. So don't be afraid to make those mistakes and change the session or do whatever you have to do. But put yourself out there and try to learn the skills and try to develop the kids as much as you can.
Very good, Billy. So just to follow up a little bit or reiterate what Billy is saying, in our coaching courses, and if you've sat any of our coaching courses or if you're looking to do it in the future, it does talk about a perfect picture. It also does reinforce that you do not have to go out and play a game of hurling tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you've had to have played hurling since you were, the age of 4 or 5 years of age. But it does mean that you should try to learn the perfect picture, that you learn the orthodox grip and swing that Billy was talking about there in the very first slide. That you work on learning, you as the adult work on learning that you can at least show the perfect picture to the child. They're going to be the ones running and they're going to be ones in the middle of the game, but that you as the coach do try and learn the perfect picture. And Billy, I'll ask you again, it was in your last slide. Do you feel that that's doable, even as a person that might not have played a lot as a youngster?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I wouldn't have played much hurling at all. And even in the last year and a half to 2 years since taking over this GDA position, felt way more comfortable in hurling and running hurling sessions and things like that. And that's just based on working on those fundamentals and learning them and watching the people that do know them, like Colin, or I'm sure there's people within all the clubs out there that have played hurling that 10, 15 minutes. And if not, you watch a video. There's so many resources out there. But just being a sponge to learn and continue to develop your own skills.
Does anybody have a question for any of the speakers so far now that we're 30 plus minutes in? Yes, Richie. Can you say what club you're with, Richie?
From Raleigh GA. I have one player, a camogie player. She's quite strong. She's good, but she has dominant left hand, but will strike off her right hand side.
Okay.
And I spent some time with her at the last session, trying to encourage her to go onto her other side to strike off her other side, but she's very reluctant to switch. So she's holding the hurley correctly. It's just that she's favoring the other side. Is that something I should focus on, or just leave it go? Or
a lot of it's Richie. It's definitely repetition now. Every hurler will come up against being stronger on one side and having to work on the other one. So there's no easy fix on that one. Is it a child, Richie, or an adult?
It's a child.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely would just keep encouraging on the other side so that, look, let's face it, the ball definitely comes on her left side. Don't let her walk around the ball to hit it on her right side, or at least encourage her to not walk around the ball and hit it on her right side, that she does try on her left, and just keep reinforcing that mistakes are fine. And that one bit of verbiage that I do like is that as they grow older, so you can definitely talk to the child as she grows older, she'll need to play off of the ball on her left side.
Okay.
And look, the other thing is some of the best players in the history of the game have played as left-handed hurlers. That's just a fact. Look at TJ Reid, probably the best player of the last 10 to 12 years is a left-handed person.
Yeah. I think the challenge is she's really good off that with that
Yeah.
unorthodox side.
Yeah.
So when she switches, she doesn't have the same success rate, and she gets
Yeah.
frustrated and she'll just switch back.
Yeah, I would definitely try and keep encouraging her that it's not all like, you know, a Tuesday night in the rally training session isn't the be all and end all, but
Yeah.
we will look at some resources and some games that maybe you can challenge her a little bit, or other players, because the next thing is some more resources, like where do we session plan. Any other questions? Good, thanks, Richie. But there's no easy fix on that one now. I can just promise you that.
No worries. Thank you.
Any other questions before we talk? Secretary Board, Rock City. Can you just say your name, please?
Hi, yeah, my name is Ryan McDermott. The question I had was just, was there anything in the resources you shared so far about the rules of play for the youth? I don't know if the youth rules are any different than the adult rules.
Interesting. No, I did not. I did not prep the rules tonight, but there are CYC rules, which is our biggest competition of the year, and I can easily share that with you. There is a big part of our youth Gaelic games on Go games, which do modify the rules. And for instance, at 6s, 8s, 10s, it would talk about playing zones. So is that the angle you're going on? Is it Go games resources?
I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, I'm only really like nominally involved with like the youth side of things for our club.
Sure.
So I'm not sure what's out there. I just wasn't sure. We just started last year, so we haven't had any actual games yet.
Gotcha.
You know, but you're just talking about coaching. I know the rules are always pretty important as far as that goes too. So
the youth hurling and adult hurling, there's no major rule differences other than there absolutely should be an emphasis on ground hurling games at the ages of 6 and 8 for sure. So
Okay.
ground hurling only. You should definitely be going that route because it gets the grip and swing and the whole holding of the hurley down. And there are zones, and I'll try and pull it up before the end. Certainly in the Q&A, I'll try and pull up a Go Games. It's in the Introduction to Coaching in Gaelic Games, actually, the new coaching course. It's one of the last pages, so I can probably show you before the end. But why do we play zones at youth hurling? Well, look, kids will follow the ball. So if you're playing 7v7, you'll have 14 kids in the corner of the field. The recommendation on 7v7 is a goalie, 2 defenders, 2 mids, 2 attackers, and then the reverse on the other way. So you've got 4 kids in each of the 3 zones, so that each of those 4 kids have an opportunity to play the ball out of their zone, or at least fight for the ball and play the ball in the zone that they're in, and they don't go into the next zone. You do rotate the zones or rotate the players through the zones. So in other words, if they're defense for the first 7 minutes, that they're mid for the next 7, and so on and so forth, that you rotate them through the zones. So it's a modification of the rules of the game of hurling, only in the way that it's set up on the field, and it's set up to allow the players to succeed.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will try and pull that up before the end of this. If you put your email in the chat, I will also send you that separately. And in fact, guys, if everybody just puts their email in the chat, I'll send any resources that we talk about tonight. Will be sent to those emails. Any other questions while I'm teeing up something else here? Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're all popping your emails in there now. Now let me find my other resources. This is amazing. I did a test run on this an hour ago, and I was able to see everything, and now I can see nothing. Bear with me here. So there are a few booklets and PDF booklets that I like. Now you're going to get more than the ones I show you here tonight, but I'm going to show you a few that I like. And the reason I like them maybe. This one is labeled for 4 to 7-year-olds. The same author has up to 11-year-olds, and then he's got from 12-year-olds on. He's got booklets for all the ages. I just really like the style of them. So I'm hoping you're seeing that. The first couple of pages, he gives good guidelines on the how to coach skills, another reinforcement of the coaching course. But just let's get into the nitty gritty of what he does here. There's plenty. These are also suitable for football, and they can be modified for hurling. So he does talk about football here as well. Let's just pick one here. Let me see a good hurling one. Sorry. Okay. So the way he sets them up, he describes this one is called Clear the Square. He describes what he's trying to do. He tells you red, yellow, blue, and all the rest of it, and then he gives you a diagram of how the game could or should be played. Each of these are one page. So earlier I talked about, say, how do you gather folders or put folders together? Let's just take this one here. If you like this one, or if you go on to the next one and you like the next one here, if you can see the print, logo above, just to hit print, it'll ask you which one do you want to print. You print the current page, and this is how I save my stuff, and then I just label it good round strike, for instance. Okay, you label it whatever way you want, and you save it to wherever you want to, and you're now gathering a whole lock of resources for yourself and putting them in the same folder. But this particular one is Coaching the Game, but GAAME. That's his Twitter handle also. He's really good on Twitter. And this is one of his booklets. He does have others. So that's one I would definitely drive you to. And you should be having a look at that one. The one I opened was 4 to 7. Another one that I like here is I'm jumping over to the Waterford one. It's called Well Kids. Richie, you're Waterford, aren't you? So this is the Waterford GA resources. Again, there's a one pager on what he's trying to do. Actually, I think hurling is down at the second part of it. The top bit is Gaelic football, and the second half is hurling. Okay, so this one here, for instance, he calls a pancake toss, but there's a diagram that kids are soloing beanbags into the circle. That can also then turn into balls. They can solo balls in. You can have the ball starting in the circle and you can solo back out. You do your rise in the circle and you solo back out. But this particular one will talk to you about what you're trying to achieve, the key coaching points, and the diagram. And again, going back up to your print symbol, this is another one that you can hit print on and just save it. This current page is the one I like, and you can print that to wherever you keep your resources. Any questions on those, guys? Now, I'm actually going to send you about 6 different PDFs. These are 2 that I wanted to show you just tonight. Any questions on those? Does it make sense to you there, what we're trying to achieve? Yeah. Then I'll just give you one more little thing. And this is from our introduction to to coaching and Gaelic games. It's the old foundation course. It's the new version of the foundation course, and it's called Introduction to Coaching and Gaelic Games. It does now cover all codes. It is the first of the merge of the associations at home. This is the first steps in, and it is a coaching merge where everybody is now certified. Coaching, ladies football, Gaelic football, you're all certified through this. It just talks about it just talks about the ideal principle. If you're coaching, guys, we try to introduce the skill, we try to demonstrate the technique, explain the activity that you're doing. So if you're doing that last beanbag one, you explain, you've already set it up, but you as a coach demonstrate the technique of what you're trying to achieve. You explain the activity, but then you let them at it. The action one here is probably the most important part of it here. Demo is important, but definitely you have to let them at it, or our practices become very boring. And then you as a coach are attending, you're looking, you're observing for best practices, and you're interjecting when you need to. So hopefully we all get to this here, that when we're putting our planning sessions together, that we go to the field remembering that each of the skills we do, this is a good principle to remember. Any questions on the resources, guys? All right.
This is Brian from Little Rock. I
Yes,
just wanted
Brian.
to make sure that these are coming in on the PDF to the emails.
Yes, all of these PDFs will come in. So I'll try and show you. I'll try and show you what I have for you. But basically, tonight I have about 6-ish PDFs. I want to keep it nice and tidy.
Sure.
About 6-inch PDFs that we're going to distribute to you tonight. But let's go back to what we do with them, though. I would definitely recommend that you, as clubs, give yourselves an hour and a half, whatever it takes, to sit down and actually write lesson plans. I know that a lot of us arrive at the field and we really haven't planned, and we do a session and it's good or bad. Hopefully, typically we certainly do our best, but often we do very good jobs. But we will definitely do better jobs if as clubs that we use these resources now to do some planning. And I would definitely recommend a laptop, and I would definitely recommend that you start an under 6 folder and an under 8 folder and an under 10 folder and so on, that you can then access those as you need them. But if you plan maybe the next 3 weeks and then the following 3 weeks, and if you're doing 2 nights a week, if you do 3 weeks, you just need 6 lesson plans. But I definitely would encourage that you do that, guys. Let's do full Q&A here now while we're all on. There's anything about what's gone on so far, or any question whatsoever that you had in your head before and you saw there was a youth hurling webinar? What was your question that you were bringing to the table? And then just say your name and your club if you could, guys.
Hey, this is Jamie Walden from the New Hampshire Wolves Hurling Club. Brand new. Haven't fully started our program yet, but just trying to get ahead of things, and no idea how many kids are going to start showing up. How can we, grow the club from, we're doing an intro to Gaelic games during our tournament,
Right.
but we're going to have kids between the ages of 7 and 15, and how can you incorporate some sort of, intro to that type of vast developmental level?
So the very first thing that every single person needs, a child of 5 or a 30-year-old that walks through your gates, is the grip and swing. So what is the grip and swing? It's really how to hold the hurley. So I would definitely, if you're planning for a come all or an open day, I would definitely learn the grip and swing. I would learn the verbiage of the grip and swing. Billy did talk about it earlier about how to hold our hurleys correctly. I would teach that. I would then plan some games that to grip and swing the game properly. Now here's where you have to divide them. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say the obvious, where you have to divide the 5-year-olds from the 15-year-olds, but that's where you need your help. I would say to you to have anybody that's helping you, they'll often be learning sometimes at the same time as well. Now, if they're players, maybe they're not, but do the grip and swing collectively and then break out into games. And that's stuff where your PDFs is going to help you. I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Jamie.
Jamie, there's a ton of fun games that you can do, and a lot of it is ground. Like, I wouldn't be going shooting points the very first 5 minutes. A ton of stuff you can do with ground hurling and just striking the ball to each other, and then controlling the ball when it comes back to you. And whether you're 5 or 15, if you've seen this game for the first time, it's going to be hard to control that ball. And the 15-year-olds will hit to each other a bit harder and so on. So that's the very first thing I would do in any open day. You can then progress it, but if you plan, and I'd be happy to lesson plan with you, Jamie, or we also now have a new games development officer out of Boston, which is your division, and we can direct a lesson plan using the GDAs that are in place.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think Tim Lemke had a question. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, Colin. This is Tim Lemke, Willamette Valley Nomads out in the Northwest. We're in Eugene, Oregon. I guess kind of a similar piggyback to what he's asking there. Jamie was asking as far as, but additionally, as far as resources for getting equipment, because we're just starting our programs. Mentioned the whole Northwest. I'm kind of helping to help organize the whole division as well. So we have a lot of questions on helping teams get equipment to be able to even jump into youth hurling. So that's kind of more, I guess, a big piece of what we're looking at too.
So this is for the whole class, but a great question. If you've never had a youth hurling program before, the Hurling Development Work Group, years and years and years ago, we have an equipment grant. If you're a startup, and so any youth program that's a startup is entitled to an equipment grant through USGAA. Basically, it's a matching grant. $1,600 gets you 10 helmets, 10 hurleys, 2 dozen slitters delivered to your door. USGA will, now there is a bit of paperwork, but we will match so if you put up 800, we'll match that and you get the full pack to get started. Now, I will tell you it's a one-time grant. I'll also tell you that you could spend 10,000 and still only get 800 as a startup monies, but it is a startup equipment pack. There is also a new club phase. There's phases through the USGAA and through USGAA that if you start a club, that there are other pots of monies that you can access as a new club. So that's for everybody, not just Tim in the Nomads, but so there's 2 pots. There's the Hurling Equipment Development Grant, and there is the new club grant, and both of those can be used for equipment. Resourcing equipment, the American Hurling Company is excellent. They're out of Carolina. They have really good quality equipment, and he has a great stock of equipment and has worked really hard on hurling equipment. There is one in LA. The Play Hurling guy has equipment. David Wogan is his name, and he has equipment for sale. He's all over the internet. And actually, for years and years and years, I bringing equipment through micro helmets and cool tech hurleys. If we were having this conversation about 15 years ago, there was actually no hurling supply source, and I got on to the suppliers, and the suppliers have essentially given me equipment to sell, and you'll find that it's pretty much at cost price because I don't run it as a business. So now you can also go directly to any company in Ireland. As long as you produce receipts, you are entitled to the equipment grants, and there is some paperwork on that. Rob Tierney, I did put his number in the chat, guys. He is a full-time now with USGAA, and he's the games development coordinator, but his email is under his name is rob.tierney, and that is in the chat if you go back to the start of the chat. Does that help, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Any other question, though? You're not sure. Did I waffle too much and lose the answer?
Oh no, I did. No, you're spot on. It's everything. A lot of that I'd already heard. I was just, some of it's just our adult club is very small also. So
Sure.
we anticipate actually our youth club being bigger than our adult club very quickly. Our area is very, very large in youth sport.
Right.
And especially like lacrosse, when lacrosse was introduced in our area, it boomed very quickly. And we've had a lot of interest from all of our events we do in youth hurling. So we're anticipating a very quick growth, and then it's just an issue of how do we get equipment for them to be able to even,
Gotcha. So
play the game.
Another thing that I would encourage your area and anybody else that's on here is doing an introduction to Gaelic games coaching course. And then you can angle, your tutor will be well able to adapt and angle any way you want there. You can kind of go hurling heavy if you're a hurling club on that introduction to Gaelic games course. Tim, if you connect with me, I'd also be happy to do just do a one-on-one with your club. And we can plan out a few sessions or plan out some open days, but that's probably a bigger answer than tonight's webinar. But I certainly, that is open to you if you my email's in there too. Jake Hall of Cova was the first, and then Jamie, I think you're back on for another question. Jake Hall.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good.
So this may be outside the scope of this webinar, but how do we compete with other youth sports organizations? Is there any thoughts or strategy going with that? We're one of the smaller clubs in the smallest division, and really soccer and football are king down here where we're at. So I don't know if because we're competing for these kids and their parents' time. So is there anything that you can speak to on that?
Whether it's Richmond or whether it's Richmond or coastal Virginia or Chicago or Philly, it's the same thing. It's the same answer. You must be organized. You must be prepared, and you must have structure. Like, you can't have it Monday this week and Tuesday in 2 weeks' time, and then maybe one coach this week and 5 coaches next week and no coaches the week after. So you absolutely must prep and be ready, Jake. And even further to the equipment one, I would say have your equipment ready. Now, let's face it, starting, you won't always have 50 helmets in your club, but you must structure your practice where you're able to do something with the 20 that you have in one group, and you can be doing something different with no helmets, which can be the grip and swing, and you can spread them out in another part of it where there's no ball involved, and you're just going through stuff like holding the hurley. But you must be prepped. You can't half-ass it. If you're taking on other sports, you absolutely must be prepped. But I'd say you probably knew all of that. Any follow-up on that, Jake?
Nope. Thank you very much.
And then another thing I would do, Jake, sorry to follow on from, I would definitely connect with other entities. So what's happening around the country? Well, in your part of the world, I suppose Philadelphia for sure, Pittsburgh to an extent, the Midwest, or your Mid-Atlantic. DC, I know, are getting going strongly, and buddying up with other entities in your division will certainly help. And, you know, I would be inviting the DCs down to you, and I would be going to the DCs on their days, if you were able. Now, forgive me if DC is a million miles away from you, but there surely is other cities in your location that maybe you could buddy up with.
All right, thank you.
Jamie, did you have a new question, or is your hand up for the original question?
So just following on that hurling equipment grant with the subsidies up to 800. Now, being that we are going to hopefully get a good turnout at our intro to Gaelic games, let's say we don't have a total of 9 players. Do we, put off that till, we start gathering more interest and, just doing these type of informal sessions?
Yeah. So now I'm curious where you came up with the number of 9 players, though.
The bottom of this is off of a USGAA hurling equipment grant form. Talks about newly formed team is defined as a team that is registered with USGAA with a minimum of 9 players. Now, I'm not sure if this is just an adult.
I'd say that's an
one.
adult form. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an adult form. Now,
Okay.
look, yes, and because that's definitely an adult form, but from the youth side of things, you'll find good support on your equipment grants. I mean, it's a leap of faith more than a reactionary thing to say 9 registrations like is in the adult one. I think you'll get a good hearing. The other thing about the equipment grant is it is matching. You have skin in the game here too, so it's probably in everybody's interest to get the field filled and heads in helmets. Does that help a bit, Jamie?
Yeah. So is would we find that form, or should we just try to go through our regional GDA?
You can go through the regional GDA. You can come back to me, or you can go directly to Rob Tierney.
All right.
Yeah,
Excellent.
but even your your regional GDA is in Boston. You can go that route. I'd say he'll put you on to Rob anyway, or onto me in this case. So I would go both of those directions.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was off of that USGAA Youth website.
The truth is I haven't probably looked at that in a little bit, so you might have to come back to me on that one, Jamie.
Thank you.
Tim Lemke, you have hand up again, I think.
Yeah, I just want to verify the new club grant it's separate than the adult, correct?
Yes.
So there's 2 separate new club.
Yes.
Okay.
And there is I guess I might have assumed that you guys knew that there is a USGAA Youth Board also.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But there is a youth board also.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Let me see for other hands up here. Secretary Little Rock is Brian McGlann, right?
That's correct. Although I've
Right.
never been the secretary, but I stole the email. As far as the founding of a youth club, what is the minimum number? Is there you have to have a certain number of U10s, certain number of U15s. What is the requirements for the founding of a youth club on an official level with the USGAA?
I have to tell you, I don't know. But we can find out together.
Sounds good.
If you copy me on that email, I'll find out the same time as you.
Who am I emailing for that?
Secretary. So the youth club secretaries, and I'll put this in the chat. Ireland is called Board na Nóg. So the youth club secretaries are Secretary BNG, Board na Nóg. I will put that in the chat because it's a mouthful. But yeah, the youth board is known as Board na Nog.
A couple of fuck will do us good.
There you go. While I'm looking for that, any other questions? If you have a hand up or if you didn't take it down, you can ask now, just while I'm looking for that Board na Nog email. Okay. So just I suppose as a matter of wrap up, I'm going to put the Board na Nog email in the chat, but as a matter of wrap up, guys, the resources I promise you will get to your emails. The resources, some of the stuff I showed you tonight, and a lot more with it. I would definitely encourage you not to get overwhelmed and try to learn every page of every PDF that I send you. Pick the ones you like, or pick the ones that, if you're doing striking, it can be from the Waterford one, it can be from the Coaching the Game one, it can be from the GAA Learning site, but just pick what you like and start putting your planning together. The hurling development grants, I am a point of contact, but Rob Tierney is definitely a point of contact. And if you go back to the very start of the chat, his email is there. Okay. And he is he's full time and he will definitely get back to you. So that's a good. I'll try and I'll copy and paste him down into the recent chat as well. And then the last thing I would say, and he's also a point of resource for doing coaching courses. If you feel or think you need a coaching course in your area, he's a good point of contact. My colleagues, the GDAs as they're known, Billy's in Philadelphia, Alicia's in the Western Division, and Robbie Croft is now in Boston. I would say to you for sure you could and should be reaching out to them, especially if you're in their division, but even if you're not, they are professionals and you will find an answer there for sure. I'm just typing my email in here too. Somebody has found on this page, you can find the new club grant. Oh, that's in the resources. Okay, cool. Thank you, Tim Lemke, for putting that into the chat as well. All right, I'm happy to stay on, and I might just stop the recording. I'm happy to stay on for anything that's in your mind right now. But I hope you got something out of the Youth Hurling Webinar. I promise you the resources are coming to you, and feel free to reach out for any more that you would like or need. I'm happy to stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes, but you're welcome to bail if you're done listening to me. Thank you very much for coming on. It's 9:12. We're about an hour and 10 minutes into it, so I appreciate you guys giving me your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richie.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
Not at all. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Colin.
Good job, Billy and Alicia. Thank you, guys. Jimmy, I don't know if your hand is up again or if it's up from earlier. Do you have another question?
Cheers.
No, all good. Thanks. Great meeting.
Yeah, good man, Jamie. The Wolves were on some of the adult stuff as well, so feel free the next time you're in a club meeting to connect back again. And if honestly, I really don't mind doing a one-on-one with if you're doing an open day, I have no problem doing a lesson plan with you as well.
Great. Yeah, I've been playing a little phone tag with the new GDA up here, and just waiting to get that connection. Now, one other question, actually, there's on the task list of things that need to happen for the youth. Just pulling it up.
And Gary, I do see your hand up. I will come back to you just when I'm finished with Jamie here.
Yeah, new club phases and funding.
Yeah.
Initial call with new club development committee.
Yes.
Who is the new club development committee?
So the USGAA Development Committee is what they mean. I don't know if it's badly worded or not, but you'll be you'd be invited on a call with Rob Tierney, probably Ger Dillon, who's the chairperson of USGAA Games Development, and then if you're hurling specific, possibly me actually as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's kind of how that happens, and you'll get a ton of information, but a lot of it'll be probably information streams, like, who do you contact for this? Who do you contact for this? It's really a hello, and here's where we can help you. It's called.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we got all the other tasks complete. We're just waiting on that one, I guess.
Yeah, I would go directly to Rob on that one. You definitely will get an answer, and you definitely will get progress there.
Okay. Yeah, very helpful. If anybody else that's listening here, Rob's been great about being open and receptive to getting things done.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Gary, you have a question, I think.
Callum, I actually don't have a question so much as I want to take up that most of that, like 5-10 minutes that you talked about.
Okay, you're fine.
Having helped coach my kids in baseball and basketball, having grown up as an American player who basketball was my game, played baseball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Baseball is in a game where except for batting from both sides of the plate, you don't throw with both hands or whatever. In basketball, if you're going to excel in basketball, you got to learn to use both hands. You got to learn to dribble with your left hand. You got to learn to dribble with your right hand if you're dominantly right-handed. If you're dominantly right-handed, you got to learn to make a left-handed layup. You got to learn to, rebound under in the zone, in the lane, and put it back up with your left hand. For hurling,
yes,
one of the things that I would throw out there for anybody working with a youth program is the idea of getting comfortable hitting with what is, from your dominant side, what is a cross-handed batting stance from baseball, right. And then hitting, if you're right-handed, hitting left-handed as like a switch hitter or vice versa. And so hybridizing the game, one of the things I would suggest to people who are working with a youth program is don't be afraid to bring in a baseball bat and a batting tee.
You say a batting cage?
And a batting tee.
Oh, a batting tee. Okay, gotcha.
Tee. Major league batters work off a batting tee still, working on their swing and whatever. So just the idea of getting kids comfortable with what would be the cross-handed swing from their dominant side and swinging from what is the opposite side, learning to be a switch hitter. The batting tee and a bat in their hand, you've still got a stick and you've still got a ball. And you're just developing a swing. And that would be something I would want to toss on to anybody who's working on developing a youth program.
And I'll tell you what, and I have no problem with a hitting tee. I'll tell you one thing I use, Gary, is tires. We have 8 tires in Gaelic Park, and the kids, as they're learning the swing, will strike on both sides of the tire and hit the hell out of it. It does a couple of things. it obviously helps their swing, but there's also a big noise off a tire, which is good because there can be noise in the clash of the ash. And also they can whack the bejesus out of it and not get damaged. And then the other thing that I do like is as they get more comfortable, you can actually put 2 players on each side and they're hitting the tire and they're still 1.5 feet apart or whatever the width of the diameter of a tire is. So hitting tee, you've no issue with. The tire I like because they can run and it doesn't move on them. But I do agree, Gary. I have no issue with a tee or a tire in my case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you can drag a batting tee a lot of places that maybe you can't necessarily.
Yeah, I suppose I'm spoiled. I've only got north side and south side to worry about. So
yeah, no, I like the tire thing, and I like the idea that it's going to be fun to really whack at it.
Yeah,
and I suggest a bat, whatever, because smacking a ball and hitting it solid on the sweet spot of a boss is probably going to knock over your batting tee every time, and you're going to spend a lot of time picking it back up and putting it back in place. Thus, the idea of just giving them a bat. But yeah,
the other one that there's absolutely no there is no substitute for is wall ball. It's something we would have grown up with. Now it's not as easy here, but we would have grown up with a lot of just hurling against the wall and having the ball come back to you at speed. I mean, I broke a few windows, but I managed to get really good enough to miss them as well.
Okay. All right. That's my 2 cents worth.
Appreciate you, Gary. I might see you in May 18th. Are you guys coming in to Chicago on May 18th?
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what our schedule is. I'm going up to
He's freezing a bit on me there now. You're freezing a bit on me there, Gary. In fact, you're completely frozen. I think you're gone, Gary. Well, Billy, are you still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary's back. Sorry.
You're frozen on my end.
Yeah, you're gone underwater, Gary.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, how are you keeping it?
Good.
Good man. That was good. Now, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. Are you going to the refereeing course in Gaelic Park next weekend?
No,
just
I'm
3 of us.
gonna have to mute Gary because you're completely gone, Gary. You're underwater as far from all I can hear. No, Billy, I'm actually out of town. But
okay.
I'm also already certified, but I'm
Yeah.
Well, let's stop this recording.
I'm going in for that, so.
Oh, good man.
Yeah.
I think it's actually on in the DoubleTree, Billy.
Oh, is that where it is?